Hi, welcome to Feature Creatures DTF, or Drinks, Tangents, and Flicks. I am your host, Sam. I'm here for a very special episode today. I'm joined by my co-host, Jordana, as always, and we may have a special guest today. Jordana, you want to take it from here?
Yes. So we have Daniel Abella. Hello, sir. How are you tonight?
Thank you. Great. Thanks, Jordana.
Yes, thanks for being on. So Daniel is the director of the New York City Science Fiction Film Festival, which we're super excited to be able to chat with you tonight. So thank you again for being on.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, definitely. So we're just going to pick your brain with some questions and hear about the festival. So
Sure.
if you want to just give us a little backstory about the origins of the film festival.
Well, it goes back to about 2016. At that time, I looked around, and there really were very few, if any, as I recall, any sci-fi festivals in New York City. There were a few horror film festivals, but none that really focus heavily on sci-fi. And so around 2017, a group of us decided to put together the first New York Sci-Fi Film Festival, and which took place in Lower Manhattan. And the reception and attendance was fantastic. So we decided to move forward. A couple of years passed, and back last year we did our second, and now this year we are on our third. And we'll actually include, in addition to science fiction, a horror component as well. So that's why we call it New York Sci-Fi and Horror Film Festival.
Yes, which is so exciting to merge the two because I think they fit so well together.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, horror tends to be a lot more visceral, whereas sci-fi is more imaginative and creative, and in kind of, so the two of them really complement each other really nicely.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, yeah.
So what were like some heavy influences on you? Like when you were younger, were you heavy into sci-fi and like horror elements?
Yeah, I was always into both. I mean, really, I was into some of the classic sci-fi films, or films like obviously like Blade Runner 2001. We're going way back to maybe even the original Invasion of the Body Snatchers, all those 50s and 60s sci-fi horror films, and the UFO ETs, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, the UFOs coming to Earth, and so on. So I always was interested by that. And in the horror, like new stuff like Evil Dead, I was very big. Dawn of the Dead, Night of the Living Dead. I followed that whole franchise, so to speak. Yeah. So I felt it was only natural to have something like this in New York City. I mean, other cities had it, like LA and Boston and so on, but I find it very odd that New York wouldn't really have its own homegrown sci-fi. And now it has sci-fi and horror.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yes. And good choices on those movies, because those are some of my favorites too.
Oh, yeah. They're amazing. Amazing.
Mm-hmm. Dan, can I ask you a question here? Sure. On your personal taste, for sci-fi, are you a like everyone loves the like I think everyone does love like the classics, like you said, like Blade Runner, maybe like Dune is controversial, but do you have what's your opinion on I love the B side of it, Invaders from Mars, Critters, like that kind of stuff.
Well, those kind of films really are, I enjoy very much as well, because they have, they're very, what's it feeling? It's kind of you can really get comfortable. It's like wearing a pair of old jeans. They can really, whereas the other films tend to be a lot more presentational, something like 2001, very highbrow kind of sci-fi. So it really depends on the mood I'm in. Sometimes I'm down for just like an old classic, really old 40s or 50s sci-fi film. And every so often I want something that kind of engages me, that forces me to think, like film like Pi, for instance, the original with Aronofsky. Yeah. Well, it all depends a lot on the mood, but I'm definitely one of those that I'm pretty open to a variety of sci-fi. It depends on if I want to be into that kind of so bad is good, I might go like the Ed Wood style for sci-fi.
Good old Ed Wood.
Yeah, and it really depends. But I like the one thing about sci-fi, it really offers a wide range of choices. So it's not just only one type, the dystopian Blade Runner style, but there'll be stuff that is like little robots, and so it depends on the mood. So I find it very it really has a wide selection, and more recently I've been more into the animation as well. Mm-hmm. And in fact, in this festival, there are a good number of there's one called Agatha that is just a 1 hour animation sci-fi.
Yeah,
sci-fi / horror.
The lineup looks intense, like the Monster Mash and the Hanging Man. And there's just like a couple that stood out that were like clearly horror, but then there was a whole bunch that are just like the total sci-fi take on
right. It. I was really, I mean, I'm telling you, the horror section I really loved. I mean, like the Hangman you mentioned, that was like I could see that into a feature.
Yeah,
that's the kind of thing that you would be like, could be like, you know, like for example, remember the old those J movies in the early 2000s, like The Ring, and that was very much into that. So I could see like the Hangman or Finger, for instance.
Yeah.
There's each one of them. It's really cool. The one thing I generally kind of stay away from. I mean, there's one or two is like just pure slasher kind of horror.
Yeah.
Just cutting up. And I'm sure there are some tastes for that, but I generally title there's a lot of that already on television, and so I think there maybe one or two in this lineup that's like that. The more of them are kind of supernatural horror, kind of really eerie, kind of. Of course, you got the Monster Mash.
Yes, that one looks amazing.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun.
Yes, I like creature features, so I definitely, that caught my eye. And what was that, like 120 minutes, I think?
Yeah, it's 2 hours long. And
yeah.
And the directors are from New York City, so they'll be in attendance. And I think it's like 3 40-minute or 35-minute shorts.
Yeah.
So that's in the tradition of creature feature.
Absolutely. It's nice to see independent films because like right now in the horror community, independent filmmakers, it's just like they're thriving right now. Some of the biggest horror hits of 2022 were independent filmmakers, you know, so it's good to be able to broadcast that and to showcase it, you know.
Well, you know, I was just thinking about that. If you look at a lot of the new films that are on the theater now, like big ones that have theatrical release, most of them are horror films, horror sci-fi, you know, like this one by Cronenberg's son. What was the name of this film? Infinity or something? Or
Infinity Pool.
Yep, Infinity Pool.
And there's another one with I forget the name. That is a takeoff on the bear.
Oh, Cocaine Bear.
Cocaine Bear.
Yeah. So and they have this amazing distribution. So I think people are beginning to, the mainstream audience begin to really, of course, you got Scream, which is part of a larger franchise that's out there.
Yeah.
So, but I find it very interesting that a lot of these films are getting massive theatrical distribution because I think they appeal they resonate with a lot of people.
Definitely. And word of mouth is so big. You know what I mean? Like it's just to be able to showcase this to the people that are going to be in attendance, and then people start talking about it and it creates a buzz. It's just a great opportunity for filmmakers. So, and
even the one that's up for an Academy Award, I think it was nominated, which is a Chinese actor. Everything All Above and Beyond. I mean, it has a very strange title, but I haven't seen it, but I heard that it has a kind of a sci-fi absurdist quality to it. So yeah,
I heard that too. Jamie Lee Curtis was in it, and I can't think. Yes,
Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Yes,
right. That's the one. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think people are waking up to that. I mean, besides your hardcore audience, there are more people beginning to appreciate that. It's like I think one thing about sci-fi and more horror is that it's kind of a nice kick, you know, for a lot of people. It wakes them up, because I think since the pandemic, everybody's fallen into this lull, this kind of semi-comatose state. So we need films like that gives us a swift kick in the and you know what, and so we can wake up and say, hey, you know, so I think that people appreciate those kind of films.
Oh, definitely. I think the pandemic definitely took a toll on, you know, like going to the movie. Like I missed that quite a bit during the pandemic, you know, and to be able to, you know, go to these festivals, and to be able to like be amongst the creators and people who appreciate the movies just as much. It's such an awesome experience, and it's nice that we have that back and that.
Yeah, and despite the benefits of the online, which we do have, there is no real replacement. There's no substitute for the collective experience of going to a festival and watching the films with others. There's really no, so that's why. But for those who just may not live in New York, where we offer an online option as well, same films.
Yes.
So,
yes.
So yeah, I'm very excited about it, and getting the word out. Really, I think that there's a good lineup of films there that will definitely just about for anyone, whether it be into animation or sci-fi or just hardcore horror. I think you'll find a little bit of everything there.
Yes, definitely.
Looks like a great lineup. Hey Dan, so I have a question about because you obviously, this is something you said started in 2016.
Yeah,
and I'm assuming this is kind of a thing you probably you got to jump in and learn as you're building it.
Right.
What are some of the obstacles of starting a festival that the average person probably wouldn't even think about?
Well, I think the first one is just finding a good location, especially in this day and age, especially in New York City, Manhattan. Finding a place that's reasonable, that won't break the bank is first and foremost. So a lot of people think, oh, I'm just going to have these amazing films, and you got to build an audience. I mean, it takes a while for the word to get around. And in the first few years, it's important that you at least break even, or maybe you're going to take a small loss. That's fine. So one of the things to look at is where you're going to have your film. First thing is finding a team of people that share your same values. So, for instance, a lot of the films that we see, all the submissions, they're generally seen by 2 or 3 programmers at any given moment. I also make sure that I take a sneak preview into each one of them as well, to make sure that they're aligned. That's the first thing. A good team is important. Then a good location is critical as well. Because one that is not too expensive, especially in New York City. Just to give you a little example, I mean, when I first did the festival back in 2017, January 2017, we rented this room at a hotel here in New York City. And we went back thinking, oh, well, just after the pandemic, I'm sure they'll want us. They were charging literally, let me see, 800, 10 times as much per hour.
Wow.
Wow.
And I'm saying, well, wait a minute. I'm sure you got your numbers incorrect. I remember paying this amount. And they said, no, but we have this amazing sound systems. Yeah, but that's not going to justify paying thousands of dollars per hour for that. And I've seen that again and again and again. But luckily, we have a good relationship with one of these theaters, so we able to stay and deal with whatever shifts might take place. But also, as a backup, it's always good to have an online presence too.
Yes.
When we first started out, we were kind of saying, do we really want online? We kind of tried it. We tested the waters, and there are always little glitches when you're working with an online provider that they don't tell you about. And the first few years was kind of a nightmare because some people saying, I can't hear the sound, I can see the video. And so we will learn, and now everything is perfect. The last time we did it, it was fine. And I'm very happy that this year, don't just lay out don't bother to get involved and start playing around with controls. That's when things can get out of hand. So working with a good online provider is critical, because that would also expand your audience, and then offering them things that are besides films, anything that's interactive, whether it be virtual reality. This year we don't have any, but a couple years back we did have virtual reality exhibits, panels. If you can get panelists on board, we always have Q&A. Panelists are important because people love documentaries. For instance, we got this documentary this year on the Black Knight satellite.
Oh,
okay.
I'm not sure if you're familiar with this. Is a kind of a rock that basically circling the Earth. And there's been some speculation that is not just an asteroid or a rock. It's something, maybe an old spaceship. There's been a lot of speculation because the first time it was identified was over 100 years ago. And it emits this unusual signal So this is a specific signature. So people thinking maybe it's an old, spaceship from, abandoned from thousands of years ago. So, so the documentary features leading UFO researchers like Richard Dolan, and has Billy Carlson, for those who watch Ancient Aliens, for instance, the show. It's one of the guys who appears regularly. So it's definitely an interesting documentary. And I'm not sure we're going to have a live panel, but at least we're shooting for an online live panel on Sunday. So documentaries are good, whether it be people in sci-fi or people, scientists, or people working on 14 phenomena like Bigfoot or UFOs, or people love that. And it's kind of on the very edge between science and science fiction. So you could argue, well, look, this is science, maybe science fiction, maybe science, we don't know, but let's go and find out.
I love documentaries, so I'm so happy that's added to the list, because Ancient Aliens is great. Skinwalker Ranch, I don't know if you guys are familiar with that show. Yeah, that was on, so good, because it's just so like I mean, they do show that there is a massive possibility that it's happening, and it's just, I love it. It's intriguing.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many Loch Ness Monster documentaries I've watched. So I'm always on board for a crypto documentary or anything like that.
Yes,
totally. Absolutely. So that's I think people, it's a way for also when people come together, and especially if there's a small panel afterwards, it's great because you get to see the researchers there and ask questions. I mean, some of our best had panelists. We had people who were sitting down and answer questions. So we always shoot for that. And that's, anything that engages them. For instance, this year we'll have free popcorn. We'll have bags of popcorn we'll be throwing at the audience. Anything that gets people interactive. That it's not just like, oh, we're going to watch a flick. Why should I just leave my comfortable home and, go in the cold weather to, no, you meet others. And it's a kind of a tribal, we're trying to promote a kind of a tribal community, it's something that's really connected. But I do think that both sci-fi and horror people are really, they know they may be regarded as outsiders, and when they go out, but inside the festival, they're insiders. They know what's up. So that's what we like to refer to.
And it sounds so fun.
So yeah, it does.
Oh yeah. And it's no reason why they tend to really talk. Word of mouth is so important, because really, what they think is they often are at odds with the mainstream, because the mainstream tends to put out a lot of lame stuff out there that doesn't move. So and these directors tend to be very cutting edge. For instance, last year's festival we had The King in Yellow. It's an old, I think, Robert Chamel's book, and it was a redone version of that. So it's like running into a book that whoever reads it dies shortly afterwards, that kind of thing. So it's I feel that this is an opportunity for filmmakers to really get their chops into. That's why we also have a screenwriting competition too.
Oh, that's cool.
Which I think that's a great element to have, is because people, love to write. I mean, I love to write, and just to have that opportunity to be able to like submit something and possibly have it picked up, that's huge.
Or have a producer come on board and say, listen, I really like that. Can I put me in touch with such? So like in the last year's festival, we had exactly that's what happened. We had someone who was a director, and we kind of matched them with a writer. And so often we'll see feature-length productions to come from that collaboration years later. So, and let's face it, writing is really the key. I mean, if you can only go so far with special effects, so pour a ton of blood on something, but there's got to be that suspense, that element. You kind of dance between predictability and unpredictability. Like some horror films, people like that you have the actress or the actor is running, and all of a sudden you have the monster shows up right in front of them. But the tropes, but they love that. But then sometimes every so often you want to twist it, you spin it, and it gives it something fresh. So that's why writing, we really encouraging writing, and we even have a graphic novel component as well. So anything that's Oh, and I also want to mention that this year's film is from, I think we got over 10 different countries, but we cover like multiple continents. We got actually the first film from Zimbabwe.
Oh wow, that's amazing! That's awesome.
It's called The Signal, and it's an all African cast, and it's an amazing short. The director actually is a very young director. He's in his early 20s, and he actually you probably saw him in the movie Raised by Wolves. He's a young his name is Daniel Lasker.
Okay.
But the short is amazing. You know, really
is that animated?
No, that's not animated. That's is a live action.
Okay, because I did see there was like an animated short on there too, as well. I think on the lineup that kind of caught my eye.
Yes, it's called Pox, Pox, or The Pox, which is from Austria, and it's and you know, within animation there are various subgenres. You know.
Oh yeah, definitely. I love a good animation.
Oh yeah, and Agatha, for instance, is actually the writers / directors were involved. As a couple, they were involved for, but not working on it for 9 years, because it is actually a mesh between live action and animation. So it's sort of not quite rotoscoping, but it doesn't have just pure animation, but it's kind of in between. It's Agatha, and it's 1 hour long, so I consider that a featurette, so to speak. That's I'm really proud to have films from really all over the world. You know, in this festival, we have that's why we have different sections. We got international sci-fi. We have film from Spain, from Italy, from Spain, from Austria, from Germany, from France, U.S., Canada, Zimbabwe, and we had different. It depends on what you were looking for. Then you got the horror shorts. You know, you're gonna get that horror component.
Oh yeah.
You're gonna get the finger. You're gonna get the hangman, and then you got sci-fi, supernatural, and sci-fi. So supernatural is not that kind of like punch in the gut kind of thing you see from horror, but it still has kind of an eerie component. So it really we try to program it so it's for those who are in specific genre, they can go and see that genre. You know?
Yeah, and then for people who aren't familiar with other genres, it's good to like introduce them to different types, because they might not even know that they enjoy it, and then they stick around and they get to see something completely different.
Absolutely, you know, there is definitely and some of these films are world premiere. For instance, there's one from Spain called Glissa, Gliesc. Is a world premiere. It's a short, so you're definitely gonna get, you know, your money's worth. Yeah, and definitely more important is about, you know, being in an environment where you sort of others are share the same kind of spirit. And
yeah, absolutely. I feel like we're just seeing a lot of the consistent same things coming out in movies, and it's nice to have like a change of pace with almost the same, like not like theme, but similarities. But it's just nice to have unique takes on different things, because I just feel like it's just we see a lot of the same stuff nowadays.
Yeah, that's why we ask our filmmakers, don't be afraid to reinvent the medium, to work outside the box, so to speak, and sometimes it pays off, you know, because for instance, we used to get a lot of those time travel films, but it got to the point where it was all predictable in a kind of lame sort of way. So luckily, I think a lot of filmmakers realize that that's been overdone unless it's something really creative. Yeah. So the themes are a little bit more varied, and it definitely is very, very hopeful about what they're going to do with that.
Yeah, it's promising, because it can like inspire someone else to do something completely different just by watching like something that they do. So
that's awesome. Yeah, I'm really excited about that. A lot of the filmmakers, I think we got about 10 of them that are from the New York City area. For instance, we have this one called, we actually got 2 films. One is Ulame, and the other one is The Pit and the Pendulum. They're both based on Edgar Allan Poe's shorts.
Very nice.
And the Pit and the Pendulum is actually the director, who is actually a New York native, he refers to it as a musicaber, or music music I guess music macabre horror, you know. So
Yeah.
it's kind of done in an operatic way. So it's a different approach.
That's a different take. That's awesome.
Oh yeah. So we definitely every so often we'll have Lovecraft is a big one. So, you know,
yeah.
Actually, last year we had a documentary on his life. It was a mini kind of a mini biopic on H.P. Lovecraft. So
that's awesome.
It's cool to see these people. Like example, that Hangman, I think that if I ever if the director I get a chance to talk to him, definitely suggest that he make that into a feature because it has that kind of quality.
Just like the imagery, just like when I was scrolling through and I saw that image, like him upside down with a rope, I believe, I was like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, no, I thought I've seen a lot, and because after a while you think, oh well, what's next? But this one was very creepy. So no, you got to do this and to turn this into a feature. You know, at least it has that kind of potential.
Yeah, it sounds right up my alley. It reminds me of that one Lights Out where they had like the short of it, and it was the short where the woman kept shutting the light off, and then they saw like the outline of the figure, and it was getting closer, and then they turned it into a full-length movie. Which, I mean,
yeah. So I mean, that's it. I mean, and Finger, that's very intense too. And the amazing thing is, short for the very end where there's a little bit of gore. The whole thing is just billable, this tension, this gut-wrenching tension, and so that I mean, it's exciting, and the same with the sci-fi. I mean, The Signal, for instance, is not the first time that trope has been used. This is done in a very different kind of way. You know, a signal from outer space that drives people into homicidal maniacs.
Awesome.
I love it. It sounds right up all of it just sounds right up my alley. So
yeah, it's really fun. I mean, I'm excited. It's and the Monster Mash. So we really picked the very best. And the idea is, there was some talk, well, should we do a 2-day live and 2-day online? I know it's better to have a really one day that is really solid. That's like every film, it's kind of floors you. Than have filler. Which we really don't like filler. Oh, it's 2 days over. No, it's just have one that really. But it's a long day. I mean, it starts at 10:30 in the morning and it runs to midnight.
Yes, I was checking out the times too because I really wanted to be able to attend, and I'm like, that's a full day. But I mean, you entice me with popcorn, so I can't turn that down.
It's we're definitely gonna get, and we have believe we have at least 8 or 9 filmmakers who have already confirmed they'll be showing up. Yeah,
nice.
That's awesome.
So it's exciting. So yeah, there's still a lot of possibilities with. That's why I tell people, look, people say, oh, so much has been done, but you just got to read, you got to write. There's a lot of possibilities that still can be done with that. All you have to look is for just like the films of the 50s. A lot of those UFO films reflected our anxiety about the Russians, the Cold War, and all that. There's so much stuff that you just got to be aware that you can work on right now. That can, all the stuff that's happening, there's so much substance there. You can turn into some good horror.
Oh yeah, plenty of material for that.
Yeah.
I mean, like the whole AI thing with Megan, and I know that's like a mainstream production from Blumhouse, but the idea of like artificial intelligence and what came of that, it's kind of eye-opening because we're already there.
Yeah. And this is an instance where the idea of AI, the way it's been represented in movies, sometimes comes eerily close to reality. You read about the reporter who claimed that the chat GPT wanted access to the nuclear codes. And now it may not. And this is the thing: it may not. In films like, say, Skynet or Terminator, we have a fully sentient AI system. But what this suggests something even more concerning is that the AI may not even need to be fully sentient to gain access to the nuclear codes and decide, say, we're going to launch the missiles.
Yeah.
And so, so yeah, there's a lot of interesting stuff. I mean, usually they don't match exactly what sci-fi and horror films usually it's a mismatch a little bit, but it's close enough that I say, so whatever I would refer to as a sneak preview into what's happening, into what we're going to be dealing with, like transhumanism, all kinds of very unusual stories can come from that.
Absolutely. Yes.
Absolutely.
And so that is taking place March 25th in person on the Saturday, and then March 26th, Sunday, is the virtual day.
Yeah, and it's exactly the same hours.
Yeah.
Except we'll create room for Q&A after each screening.
Yes.
So
I think that's great that you're doing the Q&As right after too, because it's like fresh in your mind. Because there's times that I watch movies and I have so many questions, and I just wish I had the capability of like speaking to someone who made it, because you're just like, but wait, or why did you think this? So it's nice to have that option.
Yeah, and it's a good way to interact with filmmakers. Like a lot of filmmakers who may not be able to attend, say they're in LA or another country, West Coast, or will probably show up online. And it is also good from their point of view, because you see, all of us the programmers have been filmmakers at one point or another, and we realize how important it is to have our work seen and shared by others. So it gives people encouragement, because I see filmmakers, a lot of them. So many times I hear stories. Look, and it's true. I mean, I'm maxing out my credit cards. I'm broke. I mean, and can you send me a waiver and all that? And it's true, like, because you put your heart and soul into a film, and then you realize, oh my God, I didn't spend enough money on marketing. Now I got to put an extra X thousands of dollars in, and then you're still totally broke, months behind on your rent.
Yep.
So you're running on empty. So really, it's so important for filmmakers to get that kind of like feedback. Hey, your film, you're doing an amazing job. Turn this into a feature. Do this, do that, because that's what's going to get them over the hump many times. Because it's not like they're loaded with cash. Oh, I'm going to have my distribution. You know that a lot of distribution often get very little unless you have a gigantic audience that follows you. Yeah, then you make some money. Otherwise, you'd be lucky if you can just break even. So they're hoping that this is a kind of that their film, first or second or third feature, eventually will get them into more recognition and more people. And but in the meantime, festivals like ours offer them that kind of feedback they so much need.
Yes.
Good and bad. It's like, hey, your film is too long, too short, do this or that. I mean, because you got to let them know ahead of time.
Yes.
Hey, you were to cut this little section out, put it in the back, or just cut it out altogether, because that's so that's, I think it's very important to have festivals of this nature out there, and so they can polish their work and keep moving until they reach either their own audience, raving fan base that will buy their films, or they get picked up by some major distribution. For instance, what was that? Pooh the Bear. What's the name of that comic? I keep forgetting.
The Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey.
Right. That was a micro budget production.
Yeah.
And I think that eventually word got around, and someone said, well, I like this. Now it's distributed like nationwide.
Yeah, well, that's even with like the Smile. That was like an independent film, and that, what was that, like #1 for weeks? And then they had in the slasher onset, like Terrifier 2, that was all independent, and that blew up, and now he's like a horror icon.
Exactly.
So you never know, and like you said, just don't give up. And thankfully, there's people that will give constructive criticism, and like you said, polish this part up, shorten this, and it's all coming from a good place, because we want to support these people that are making content and entertainment for us and for them,
Yeah, I mean, that's really so essential that we have that takes place, because there a lot of it is about staying on track. If you're really good and you're really talented, you will know. People will let you know. They won't just tell you, oh, you're great, because they're your friend. But people that are total strangers, they'll say, hey, this is an awesome, it shook me, it changed my life, whatever. And that's what they want to hear. And they'll be willing, that makes a huge difference versus those who don't get any kind of feedback. And what better place than do it in a live format? If not, do it with on an online, environment.
exactly. Because some people are still, you know, are a little bit nervous and apprehensive about being around people, and still, you know, like where we're at. I mean, we are far away from, you know, the pandemic in a sense, but there's still people that would probably want to be part of it, but also would like to watch, you know, like online.
Sure, yeah. I mean, we're seeing slowly they're coming back again, but it's
Yeah.
slow. I mean, I know that when we did our first one a year ago, it was well, actually, it was actually fairly well attended. It was well attended, as I recall. So, but we expect this time around to be even better. I mean, people getting comfortable with the idea of going in close quarters and just watching a film, you know. And it's but again, for those who are in another, you know, in Australia or some other place, at least they'll get to. I'm letting all the filmmakers know that they can. This will be a Q&A afterwards, so you know they'll get a chance to explain and share what the inspiration is, what their what projects they're working on, and so on.
Yep. Well, it all sounds amazing. So
yeah, it's really cool that you're providing this space. Like you said, that a lot of what comes in Hollywood now, or like the big movies, it's kind of boring because it's like the same homogenized kind of movies, and you're providing this platform to, like, you know, give unique filmmakers these and a platform, and that's just really awesome.
Right. I mean, I think I think that you see a lot of the films that are blowing up, that are really doing well, many of them were small budget or no budget productions that were picked up. They were not made in Hollywood itself. They were made by an independent filmmaker. But I think for many years, and you had, for instance, remember the Blair Witch Project? You know, it was huge. Yes. Hundreds of $1 million. So you had Paranormal Activity, another monster that made millions. So, you know, but they all often come from independent filmmakers. It's not some committee-based film. Okay, let's rewrite that screenplay for the 9th time, and then what actor can we? No, and it shows. I mean, so I think that's the important thing that we need to continue promoting, to keep everything alive, the whole scene alive, and I think it's very refreshing to see films like Smile or Winnie the Pooh, or to come out from a relatively low kind of or no budget status to, you know, major theatrical distribution. You know,
absolutely,
agreed.
Yeah, it's so yeah. Anything that makes people feel part of the group, that is interactive, because people want to. Well, at least they want to feel they belong to something, or they're part of that. At least while they're in that group, they really felt they connected. And and that's one thing that we really need, especially during the pandemic. Some people were torn and alienated from each other. Now, more than ever, these kind of events are significant in helping others, you know, feel comfortable with others. You know.
Yeah, totally. Because for me, like, film and movies, they're very important to me. They're like my escape, you know, and I love watching all sorts of movies. So, like, the sound of having all of these independent filmmakers and the creative minds, it sounds like amazing to me. So I can see.
Yeah. You never know where is that going to lead. For instance, you're familiar with the Montauk Project, right? The whole Long Island time travel thing. So many years ago, we had a director on board who shot a documentary, a reenactment documentary called The Montauk Chronicles, Christopher Garatano. And he went on to eventually, even though he did not was not involved at all with Stranger Things, which, by the way, is a complete takeoff on Montauk. They just said, instead of set in Long Island, set in Ohio or something, but it's a basic principle. In fact, Stranger Things originally was supposed to be called Montauk, but I think they changed it so they didn't have to pay anybody any money in. So yeah, you know how. But the original Montauk Project and Montauk Chronicles, that went on, and eventually he was picked up by the Travel Channel, and he was doing called Strange World, which he I think he only had one season, but it was very, very good. So it's good to see that people, they move forward and get the word out, and people see what they're doing.
Yep, absolutely.
So it's hard, kind of hardcore separation of, well, the indie, we're always going to be indie, always going to be like poor and broke, but no, there's always something. There's always some possibility of ascending, and in the meantime, even if you never make it to the big leagues, if you have a fan base that loves you, that really wants to, that supports you, that's really a big part of the thing.
Yeah,
that's what gets these guys to make film after film after film. It's not like they're making tons of money, but they really feel good. They're connecting, they're helping their fan base, and they love them. That's the key. That's what we're trying to promote in this festival.
Yeah, and staying true to themselves and doing something that they truly love and putting all that time and that effort and, money and everything into it. It's great to see.
I think that the Hollywood in general, we've seen, with the exception of a couple of features, they're not doing that well. I think there's so more and more of it is so superficial. There's very little coming out of it. But the indie world, on the other hand, I still see, a lot of new stuff coming out, being reinventing new, and screenplays. I see some amazing things. It's not the old film set in a Dune type world. No, but they're working with more. There's a lot more diversity there, and so there's still a lot of possibilities there. So it may be that we may be entering back into an era like in the 70s, when there was that whole golden period of indie filmmaking.
Yep.
Not hardcore indie, but relatively, that you had a lot of directors, Scorsese, Brian De Palma, they came out of that basic, that school. And I think we're seeing something similar. A lot of really talented filmmakers are there, but they're in the indie scene, the indie sci-fi horror scene. And they're just waiting to be discovered.
It seems like now's the time that they're getting their voice and they're actually being heard. Because I think a lot of the movies that came out that were independent are some of my favorites. Like I would prefer to watch an indie film over a mainstream movie. And it's not, because I'm solely against it, but it's just, you can see how much they put into it. You can see, the actual like love and desire to do it compared to just another huge, film company pushing out another movie.
Right. That's really the key thing is I think there is that relationship that between the director or director/writer and the audience that needs to be maintained, that strong relationship. And you know what, like with anything else in social media, they will look at, if you have a good following, whether it be in sci-fi or horror, that's one thing that these companies will look at to if they want to consider you for major distribution.
Yeah.
And that's the definitely look at those things, because they realize, look, you have a big audience. So say 30, it's easier to get, let's say you have 30,000 followers, right, for your film. It's easier to get that to 1 million. They get from 0 to 30,000. It's just that upward is very difficult. Once you get like a certain number, a critical number of followers, they'll say, yeah, let us step in. We'll support you with the distribution. You'll get the lion's share of the profits, but you'll get your film all over the country. And more people will see it, Absolutely. And we encourage also a lot of filmmakers to approach it as multiple mediums, just not one medium. So your film may be live action, but maybe it may lend itself to animation, some elements, or even a graphic novel, or start with a graphic novel. Like The Matrix was basically a graphic novel, shot by shot, right? Have you ever seen the book? It's about a year long and shot by shot. These guys were unknowns, but if it wasn't for that gigantic book they had of that storyboard, they would not have been, because otherwise that film would have been rejected. Says, no, we don't understand The Matrix. Says, yeah, you ever read the script in the beginning, which I did. It was very hard to follow. Says,
I bet.
What's going on here? Well, that storyboard, that's a different story. So I say, look, think visually, think of in terms of graphic novels. You can build an audience with a graphic novel. And then you can, from there, approach a producer, a director, maybe yourself, and take it to the next level.
Yep, exactly.
Cool.
Yes. Well, this was awesome to be able to sit down and to chat with you. And I can't wait to, like I said, see the movies and be able to, tell everyone about them and, promote as much as we can, because I definitely would like to participate in watching them. So
fantastic. Jordana and Sam, well, thank you for having me. And definitely you're more than welcome to come and join us. We'll definitely, I think it will be a live action. It will be a lot of fun that day.
It sounds like a blast to me. So I'm just very thankful to even have the opportunity to chat with you and to find out about this awesome festival. So again, for everyone, it's March 25th and 26th. And you can do the virtual all day. And then is it 15 per block? $15 per block?
Yes, that's correct. It's $15 per block. Or if you want to dare and take a chance, it's $50 for the whole day.
Can't beat that. And popcorn.
And free popcorn. So definitely check them out.
Thank you, Dan, for being with us today and taking your time to speak with us.
Absolutely. Thanks for your time, and I look forward to meeting you both in person on the 25th.
All right.
Sounds great. Thanks, Daniel.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
All righty.
And thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Good night.